I remember the smell of the hay, sharp, dry, almost sweet, and how it clung to the air even after sunset, when the light outside the barn turned the color of rusted copper. Pennsylvania in late July is a slow burn, and the days stretch long like the shadows in the fields. I was 16 that summer, sweating in plain clothes that clung to my back, buttoned to my throat like I was trying to keep something buried inside. In our Amish community, everything was quiet by design. We didn't have the hum of cars or radios, just the occasional whinny of a horse or the rustle of leaves if you listened closely enough. But that night there was something else. Something I couldn't name yet. That afternoon, I'd been sent to the Miller farm to help with the haying. My father said it was a favor, but I knew it was also a test, to prove I was strong, obedient, a man. And maybe I was. At least on the outside. Inside it was something else. Levi Miller was already there when I arrived. He was just a year older, but taller, broader, and somehow quieter. He had this way of standing still that made you notice him more than if he were shouting. His sleeves were rolled up, his straw hat pushed back, sweat glistening on his temple. I remember thinking, God wouldn't have made him that beautiful if we weren't supposed to look. We worked side by side in the sun, barely speaking. Our hands moved the same way, rhythmic, tired, necessary. But every so often, our arms would brush, or I'd glance up and catch him watching me. Not looking, watching. And each time, something cold and tight curled in my stomach. That evening, I lingered in the barn longer than I should have. I told myself I was just sweeping, just being thorough. But the truth was, I didn't want to leave. I didn't want him to leave. The others had gone home. Even Mr. Miller had retreated into the house, leaving the barn and the slow-setting sun to the two of us. Levi was up in the loft, stacking the last of the bales. I could hear the heavy thump of his boots above me, the soft exhale of dust with every movement. Then silence. Levi. I called up, my voice cracking louder than I meant. No answer. I climbed the ladder one rung at a time, heart pounding without reason. Or maybe with too much reason. The top of the loft was still lit, but dim. A few beams of gold slashed through the cracks in the wood, painting stripes across the hay. And then I saw him, just standing there, staring out through a knot-hole in the wall. He didn't turn when I stepped onto the loft floor. You ever wonder, he said slowly, what it'd be like to run away? The question was strange. Dangerous. But what shook me most was the way his voice trembled, like he was about to confess something, or maybe beg me not to. I swallowed. The barn was too quiet. And then he turned, eyes unreadable. You ever feel things you're not supposed to? My mouth opened. But nothing came out. I didn't know it then, but everything changed in that silence. What did he mean? What was he asking me? And why did part of me want to find out? The next morning came heavy with heat, the kind that sticks to your skin before the sun even rises. The rooster crowed, late as usual, but I was already awake, had been for hours. I hadn't slept much, not since the night before in the barn. I kept replaying what Levi had said. Over and over. You ever feel things you're not supposed to? He hadn't looked at me again after that. Just climbed down the loft ladder and walked home through the corn rows like it was any other night. But for me, nothing felt normal anymore. At breakfast, I kept my head down, stirring the same eggs around my plate. Maida kept droning on about wood prices and Brother Eli's new buggy wheel, but it was just background noise. My chest was tight. My palms itched. Ma gave me a strange look, soft but curious, like she could sense something out of place, but said nothing. She always seemed to know more than she let on. Maybe all mothers do. I tried to shake it off. Tried to bury it. That was what we were raised to do. We didn't talk about feelings unless they were righteous. And what I was feeling wasn't. By noon, I was back at the Millers for another day of work, and this time the sun wasn't the only thing making me sweat. Levi was already there, leaning against the fence with his sleeves rolled halfway up, chewing a piece of straw like something out of a book I wasn't supposed to read. Morning, I muttered. He didn't answer right away. Just looked at me, eyes darker than I remembered. Not angry. Not sad. Just charged, like the air before a storm. You think about what I said? He finally asked. I froze, rake halfway to the barn. No, I lied. He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. Yeah. Me neither. We didn't speak after that, not for hours. We worked the field, the barn, even the chicken coop, sweaty, exhausted, and completely silent. But there was something in that silence that gnawed at me, like an itch just beneath the skin. Every time he passed close by, I flinched. Not because I was scared of him, because I was scared of me. Of what I'd say if he pressed. Of what I might do if he didn't. Then around dusk, we were sent to the back pasture to fix a broken fence. It was secluded, wrapped in dense trees, the kind of place where sounds don't carry far. As we walked, Levi kicked a rock down the dirt path and didn't look at me. You know, he said suddenly, they caught Micah Yoder kissing that Englisher boy behind the feed store last year. I stopped. I didn't hear that. Course not. His family sent him away before church got out the next morning. My stomach flipped. You think that's right? Levi asked, not facing me. I swallowed. I don't know. He stopped walking. What would you do if it was you? I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up. Then he turned to me, closer than I expected. His voice dropped to a whisper. What if it already is? And there it was. The question no one asked. The truth no one dared say aloud. He didn't move. Neither did I. Somewhere in the trees, a cicada buzzed, impossibly loud. I finally spoke, but it came out barely a whisper. We're not supposed to talk like this. He stepped closer. I know. His eyes flicked down, just for a second, then back up to mine. And I felt something burn behind my ribs. It wasn't lust. Not only that. It was grief. Relief. Hunger. Fear. And then he leaned in so slowly I could have walked away. I should have walked away. But I didn't. I held still as his forehead touched mine, as soft as a prayer. His breath hitched. So did mine. I ain't trying to ruin anything, he said. I needed to know I wasn't crazy. The weight of it sat heavy between us. I wanted to speak, to tell him I felt it too, whatever it was, but the words got stuck. I was afraid of being wrong. Of being right. Of being seen. Then we heard it, a voice, from somewhere down the trail. Levi? That you? My heart stopped. It was Mr. Miller. We both jumped apart, like we'd been struck. Levi turned fast and hissed, Go. I'll handle it. I didn't argue. I bolted, heart pounding like a war drum. I didn't stop running until I was past the creek, past the last row of corn, and back in my room, chest heaving like I'd sprinted through Judgment Day. That night, I stared at the ceiling until my eyes burned. What if Mr. Miller had seen? What if someone else had? And worse, what if he hadn't? Because deep down, part of me was almost disappointed it ended. It was 3 nights later when everything broke open. I hadn't seen Levi since the near miss in the pasture. Every morning I waited for a glimpse of him, walking past our fields, hitching his wagon by the store, but he was just gone. Like he'd folded into the corn rows and vanished. A ghost. Each day that passed, the silence between us grew louder. I tried to pray it away, to bury it under scripture and hard work. But his voice echoed in my head, what if it already is? Then, Friday evening came with the kind of storm the sky warns you about all day. The clouds had gathered like bruises, low and churning. The wind turned warm and restless. Animals grew anxious. Even the birds fell quiet. It was the kind of weather that told you something bad was coming. I was in the barn when it hit, patching up a loose board before the rain started. I heard the first drops hit the roof like whispers. Then it escalated fast, thunder cracking overhead, wind howling through the rafters. I should have gone inside. But I wasn't alone. He stepped out from behind the haystacks like he'd been hiding there for hours. Soaked to the bone, hair dripping, shirt clinging to every curve of his body. His eyes found mine, desperate and wild. He didn't speak right away, just stood there breathing hard, like he'd run through the storm. I dropped the hammer. Levi. Don't, he said. Don't say anything yet. His voice was shaky, unhinged. I froze. I didn't come here to scare you, he continued, stepping closer. I couldn't stop thinking about that night. He moved toward me, water trailing behind him like ink on old wood. I stepped back instinctively, heart pounding. I thought you were gone, I said. He shrugged. Sent me out to Lancaster. Said I needed to be around clean minds. Whatever that means. Lightning flashed through the cracks in the roof. Thunder rolled right after, a breath behind. I didn't mean to get you in trouble, he said. But I couldn't stop thinking, if I left it alone, maybe it would go away. And? I asked, voice thin. It didn't. He looked up then and I saw it, all of it. The fear. The need. The shame. The hunger. It mirrored mine too perfectly. We didn't speak. There was no script for this. Just the storm, and the thudding in my chest, and the sound of his breath picking up when he stepped too close. You ever been kissed? He asked, barely above a whisper. My stomach turned. No. He paused. Do you want to be? I should have walked away. Should have run like I did before. But I didn't. I nodded. He took a step, then another, until our bodies were only inches apart. My back brushed the barn wall, damp and cool. His hand rose slowly, trembling as it touched my cheek. His skin was warm despite the storm. When our lips touched, it wasn't fireworks. It wasn't perfect. It was clumsy, hesitant, terrifying. But it was real. I gasped into him, caught somewhere between panic and awe. He kissed me like he'd been holding his breath for years, like I was the only thing tethering him to the earth. My hands gripped his shirt, unsure of what to do, unsure of whether I wanted to push him away or pull him closer. His fingers slid into my hair, careful, reverent. Every nerve in my body lit up. Slam. The barn door flung open. A bolt of lightning lit up the inside like a camera flash. And there, framed in the doorway, soaked and furious, Mr. Miller. His eyes landed on us. On what we were. The kiss broke instantly. Levi shoved away from me like I'd burned him, like we'd done something filthy. I stepped back, breath caught in my throat. Levi, Mr. Miller said, voice low and dangerous. What in God's name? I came to fix the barn roof, Levi blurted. Mr. Miller's gaze snapped to me. And him? What's he doing here? I couldn't speak. My mouth wouldn't work. It wasn't like that, Levi said, but his voice cracked. Mr. Miller stepped into the barn, boots thudding with rage. Don't you lie to me, boy. I saw. Levi stood in front of me, body tense. Please, just listen. No. No more listening. No more filth. I knew something was wrong. Should have sent you both to the bishop weeks ago. Please, Levi begged. His father raised a hand, not to hit him, not yet, but the threat hung there, raw and heavy. That's when I found my voice. It was my fault, I lied, stepping forward. I kissed him. Levi didn't. Levi turned. Don't you dare. Mr. Miller shouted something, I don't remember what. Everything after that was a blur. Levi grabbed my hand and pulled me behind the haystack just as Mr. Miller lunged. We pushed through the back exit, the storm slashing at our faces as we stumbled into the night. We ran. Through fields soaked in rain, past fences and barns, through every rule we'd ever been taught. We didn't stop until we reached the old orchard, abandoned and overgrown. Levi collapsed to his knees beneath the apple tree we used to climb as kids. Why'd you lie for me? He gasped. I didn't want him to hurt you. He looked up at me, shaking, wet, terrified. He's going to tell the bishop. They'll shun me. They'll send me to some correction farm like they did to Micah. I sat beside him. Then run. Turned. What? Let's run. He stared at me like I'd spoken another language. You'd really do that? He asked. I don't know, I admitted. But I can't stay here and pretend this didn't happen. He reached for my hand, fingers cold and trembling. I don't want to forget it either. We sat there in silence, beneath the storm and the weight of what we'd done. The orchard around us creaked and groaned under the wind, branches swaying like ghosts. Everything had changed. And yet, we hadn't moved at all. We didn't sleep that night. We couldn't. The rain had passed, leaving behind that eerie, weightless quiet, the kind that only comes after a storm, when everything's soaked and still and watching. Levi and I lay side by side beneath the apple tree, our shoulders barely touching. The orchard smelled like wet bark and broken fruit. Every breath I took felt too loud. He hadn't let go of my hand. Neither of us spoke for hours. We just listened, to the wind combing through the tall grass, to the frogs calling from the creek bed, to the silence pulsing between our ribs. I kept replaying the barn in my mind. His father's face, the way Levi had looked at me just before we ran, like he knew we couldn't go back. Like we'd burned the bridge before we even stepped on it. "I didn't think it would feel like that," he said finally, barely above a whisper. I turned my head. "Feel like what?" "The kiss. The thunning." He didn't say love. Neither of us was ready for that word. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just stared up through the branches, watching the moonlight filter through the leaves in broken pieces, like stained glass. "Do you think we're sick?" Levi asked. His voice cracked on the word. It hit something deep inside me, something old and buried. "No," I said. "I think we're scared." He nodded slowly. "Both." "Yeah, both." I could feel him watching me then, studying the side of my face like it might give him answers. And when he spoke again, it was a whisper so soft it almost disappeared into the breeze. "If I asked you to leave with me, would you?" I blinked, heart skipping once, then again. I started, but my throat closed. He looked away before I could finish. "You don't have to say anything," he muttered. "I just needed to know if I was alone." "You're not," I said quickly. "You're not alone, Levi." "I don't know how to do this." "Me neither." The orchard went quiet again. Even the frogs had stopped. Then Levi sat up, brushing leaves from his shoulder. His shirt was still damp, clinging to him in folds. I watched the curve of his neck, the way his jaw tensed, the way his chest rose and fell. He turned to me with something unreadable in his eyes. And then he said the last thing I expected. "My father saw more than just the kiss." My stomach turned. "What do you mean?" Levi looked away, jaw clenched. He'd been following me. Said he was worried. Thought I'd been sneaking out to meet a girl. I sat up too, heart pounding. "So what did he see?" Levi didn't answer right away. His hands curled into fists in the grass. "I think he saw me touching myself," he whispered, barely audible. The air left my lungs. "I didn't know he was there," he said, voice trembling. "It was after the night in the loft. I was thinking about you." I looked away instinctively, cheeks burning, but I couldn't stop listening. Every word felt like it cracked something open between us. "I know it's wrong," he said quickly, ashamed. "I know we're not supposed to even think like that. But it's like, once I felt it, I couldn't put it back." The orchard was too quiet. I could hear the blood in my ears, the breath catching in my throat. "I've done it too," I confessed, the words slipping out before I could take them back. Levi turned toward me slowly. His eyes were wide. He didn't look disgusted. He looked relieved. We stared at each other, the silence pulsing with something new, something raw. Then a branch cracked nearby. Too close. We both jolted to our feet. "Did you hear that?" I asked. He nodded, tense. Another snap. Closer. Deliberate. My mouth went dry. "Someone's watching," I whispered. Levi's eyes darted around the dark trees. "Come on. We need to go." We took off running again, but this time the air behind us didn't feel empty. It felt full. Like someone was following. Like someone already knew. We didn't speak as we ran. Through the orchard, past the creek, back to the edge of the road where the gravel turned to mud and our lungs threatened to burst. The night clung to us like wet linen. Every sound, a snapping twig, the rush of wind through branches, made my skin crawl. When we finally stopped, we were standing behind the old feed silo on the outskirts of my uncle's land. It was half-collapsed, rotting, forgotten, just like us, in that moment. Levi bent over, hands on his knees, gasping. Did you see anyone?" "No," I said. "But someone was there. I swear it." Neither of us said what we were both thinking. Was it him? His father? Was it someone worse? The silence that followed was thicker than fear. And colder. "We can't stay here," Levi muttered, brushing his damp curls off his forehead. "They'll talk. Might already suspects enough. If anyone else saw. He didn't finish. I leaned against the silo wall, suddenly too exhausted to stand straight. My muscles shook with adrenaline, but it was the silence between us that really scared me. You think he'll tell the bishop? I asked. Levi didn't look at me. He already did. I saw them together yesterday. I was walking back from the mill. They stopped talking when they saw me. A lump rose in my throat. What did you do? I kept walking. He finally met my eyes. But they know. And that means they'll know about you too. It hit me then, what we'd really done. Not just kissed. Not just touched. We'd shattered something sacred. Or at least something they believed was sacred. We'd looked at each other the way no two boys ever should, in their eyes. We didn't just break rules. We became the reason those rules existed. Levi sat down in the dirt, hands in his hair. They'll send me away, Eli. Somewhere far. Like they did to Isaac. Remember him? I nodded. Isaac was sent to a reform camp in Ohio after someone caught him holding hands with another boy behind the grain mill. No one had seen him since. I can't let that happen to you, I said. He looked up, bitter smile twitching on his lips. You can't stop it. Then I'll go with you. You'd leave everything? I hesitated. Would I? Leave the only life I've ever known? The silence of the fields? The comfort of the old ways, even if they choked me? I don't know, I said honestly. But I can't stay and watch them erase you. Levi swallowed hard. His eyes shimmered, but he didn't cry. He never did. Even when we were kids and he broke his arm falling out of the barn loft. Even when his mother died. I think I already feel gone, he whispered. We sat there, side by side, until the sky began to lighten. The sun rising didn't feel like hope. It felt like exposure. We should head back, Levi said finally, before someone finds us. But we both knew that someone already had. As we stood and brushed ourselves off, I noticed something hanging from a branch near the silo. A piece of cloth, dark, coarse. Like the sleeve of a black coat. Freshly torn. We weren't alone last night. And whoever was watching left a piece of themselves behind. I remember the sound of the crickets that night more than anything. Not the words, not even his breath on my skin, just the sound of the crickets. Like the world was holding its breath for us, chirping nervously from the tall grass behind the barn. That summer, everything felt too still. Even the wind moved like it was afraid to rustle the wrong leaf. I was 17 and bored in the way only an Amish boy can be bored, working the same fields, reading the same scriptures, speaking only when spoken to, and watching the world change from a distance I wasn't allowed to cross. Then Levi came back. He'd been away for months, some family situation in Belleville. Rumor was he'd been sent off for discipline, but no one ever said it outright. We weren't supposed to ask questions, not even the quiet ones. The kind that sat behind your teeth and made your jaw ache. He came back taller. Broader through the shoulders. His voice had dropped. His eyes too, they held something different. Like he'd seen something out there that the rest of us weren't allowed to know existed. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was just the heat. The air pressing too heavy on my chest, making me stupid, slow. But every time he looked at me, really looked, I forgot how to be normal. The Hayloft was our secret place. Always had been. As kids, we used to climb up there to throw apples at the hens and tell ghost stories until someone got scared and fell asleep. Back then it was innocent. But things weren't innocent anymore. The afternoon it started, the sun was leaking through the slats in golden ribbons. Dust hung in the air like it had nowhere better to be. We just finished stacking the last of the hay bales. Sweat clung to our necks. His shirt stuck to his chest, and for a moment, I hated how much I noticed. He sat back, resting against the wooden wall, legs spread wide like he didn't care who was watching. I looked away fast. Do you ever think about leaving? He asked suddenly, breaking the silence. I blinked. Leaving where? He shrugged. The farm. The rules. Everything. It wasn't the question that got me. It was the way he said it, like he already knew the answer and just wanted to hear me say it out loud. I've thought about it, I admitted. He looked at me then. Not with judgment. Not with pity. With something else. Something that felt like danger. That was the first time I realized the air between us was charged. That maybe he'd come back different for a reason. And that whatever happened next might be something we couldn't undo. But I didn't know then how far it would go. Or what he would do when he realized he didn't know what gay was after all. Or how close someone already was, listening, watching, waiting to expose everything. They say the devil enters quietly in our world. Not with horns or fire, but in thoughts. In glances. In silence too long held between two boys who were supposed to be brothers, but never quite felt like it. It was a Wednesday midsummer. The kind of day that stuck to your skin like warm syrup. The kind that made everything feel slower, simpler, safer. But it wasn't. I'd just finished morning chores, gathering eggs, mending the back fence where the goat kept squeezing through, and was sitting on the back porch, boots off, sipping sweet tea that was already lukewarm. My mother was somewhere inside humming a hymn, the same one she hummed every time she didn't want to think too hard. The wood beneath me creaked with every shift of my weight, but I liked that. It made me feel rooted. Then I saw him again. He was standing at the far edge of the field, just beyond where the corn rows ended and the wild goldenrod took over. He'd come to help my father with the hay baling that week. His family had fallen on hard times, or at least that's what they said. I never understood why a boy like him would need to be passed around between farms like a hired hand. But there he was. Same broad shoulders. Same lazy gait. Same crooked smile that made you wonder if he was always about to tell a secret. We hadn't spoken since last fall. Not since the barn raising, when I'd caught him staring at me across the firelight. Not since I'd found that note wedged between the slats of my window one cold November morning. A note that said, in handwriting too shaky to be brave, "Do you ever feel like there's something wrong with us?" I'd never responded. But I hadn't thrown it away either. Now he was back. And older. And more dangerous. He walked up like nothing had happened. Like we'd just seen each other yesterday. "Eli," he said, soft but sure. His voice had changed. Deeper now. Like it knew how to make things tremble. "Levi," I replied. It came out too fast. He smiled. "I heard you got stuck with the runt calf last season. Heard you named him Amish." I didn't laugh, but he did. Like the sound of my discomfort was enough to make his day. That's when I noticed the bruise under his collarbone. Just peeking out from under his shirt. Purple and sick-looking. Like a fist had tried to erase part of him. I didn't ask. We weren't allowed to ask those kinds of questions. But it stayed with me. All day. So did the way he touched my shoulder when he walked past. Just 2 fingers. Just long enough. Later that night, I heard someone in the hayloft. But when I looked out, there was no lantern light. No sound. Just shadows moving too carefully to be mice. And I remember thinking, was it him? Was he waiting for me? Or was someone else already watching? Someone who knew what we were. What we could become.